The council room was huge and filled with strange lights. Blue and green colors glowed from the walls. Ryan Cooper sat in his chair and watched the alien leader stand up. The alien's name was Zelthax, and he looked like a giant crystal spider with 4 legs. His body shimmered when he moved. Zelthax raised all 4 of his arms. His voice came through a small device that turned his words into English. Humans must leave the Outer Rim planets. You have 30 days to pack up and go. Your people do not belong there. Those worlds are for civilized species, not primitive creatures from a death planet. Ryan did not move. He had been Earth's ambassador for 20 years. He knew how to stay calm when aliens tried to scare him. Next to him sat Kate Morrison, a young military officer with short brown hair. She started to reach for her weapon, but Ryan touched her arm gently. She stopped. "Let him finish talking," Ryan whispered to Kate. Zelthax kept speaking. His voice got louder. "Earth is a terrible place. Your gravity is too strong. Your air has too much poison in it. Your planet has storms and earthquakes and animals that want to kill you. You should never have left that world. Now the council has voted. Leave the Outer Rim or we will force you out." All around the room, other aliens made strange sounds. Some clicked their mouths. Others hummed or flashed colored lights. They all agreed with Zelthax. The Veltari Empire controlled a huge part of space. They had thousands of warships. No one ever said no to them. Ryan stood up slowly. He was 6 feet tall, which made many aliens nervous. Most species in the galaxy were smaller than humans. He walked to the speaking platform. His boots made soft sounds on the floor. "Commander Zelthax," Ryan said in a calm voice, "I understand what you want, but I must say no. We will not leave our colonies." The room became completely silent. Aliens looked at each other in shock. Some of their translators repeated Ryan's words, as if they could not believe what they heard. Zelthax's crystal body turned bright red. That meant he was very angry. "You refuse the Grand Council? Your entire species is only 12 billion people spread across a few planets. The Veltari Empire has over 400 billion citizens. Our military has more ships than you can count. We could destroy your sun if we wanted to." Ryan smiled. This made several aliens move back in their chairs. Humans showed their teeth when they were happy, but most aliens thought it looked scary and mean. "I am sure your ships are very impressive," Ryan said. "But I think you need to understand something about humans first. Let me show you our home planet." Ryan pressed a button on his wrist device. A picture appeared in the air above everyone's heads. It showed Earth spinning slowly, with white clouds and blue oceans. "This is Earth. The gravity on our world is almost 10 meters per second squared. Most of your planets have half that much. Our air has 21% oxygen. That would burn the lungs of half the species in this room. Our atmospheric pressure would crush visitors from low-pressure worlds." Kate stood up next to Ryan. She pressed another button and more information appeared. "Our planet has temperature changes from -89 degrees to 58 degrees Celsius. We have water that covers 70% of the surface, and that water has salt in it that destroys metal. Our ground moves and shakes. We have storms with winds that blow over 300 kilometers per hour." Several aliens made sounds of fear and disgust. Zelthax's home planet always stayed at a comfortable 22 degrees. Most species came from gentle worlds with soft weather. "But wait, there is more," Ryan said. "Our world has millions of species that want to eat us. We have predators on land, in water, and in the air. Even our plants have thorns and poisons. We share our planet with bears that weigh 600 kilograms, snakes with venom that can kill in minutes, and insects that carry deadly diseases. What is your point?" Zelthax demanded. "We know your world is hostile. That is exactly why you should have stayed there." Ryan's smile got bigger. "My point is simple. Humans did not just survive on Earth. We became the strongest species there. We learned to hunt animals bigger than us. We learned to live in places where the temperature would kill you in minutes. We conquered every environment on our planet, from the hottest deserts to the frozen poles. Every human child grows up learning to survive in conditions that would kill most of you within hours. He pointed at Kate. Lieutenant Morrison comes from Alaska. That is a place where winter temperatures freeze water solid for months. She grew up hunting huge animals for food. She shot her first bear when she was 12 years old. For fun? Kate nodded. I cleaned and prepared the meat myself. It fed my family for 2 months. More aliens made sounds of horror. The idea of children hunting megafauna was beyond their understanding. Most galactic species got their food from farms or synthesizers. Ryan continued. You mentioned your military superiority. Let me tell you about human military history. We have been fighting wars since before we could write. We fought with rocks, then with bronze swords, then with iron, then with steel. Eventually, we built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We have had wars that killed tens of millions of our own people. We developed strategies and tactics in an environment where losing meant death. Empty words, Zelthax said. His voice sounded like breaking glass. Numbers do not lie. You are few. We are many. You will lose. Maybe, Ryan agreed. But you are making a big mistake. You think that because we are small and new to space, we are weak. You think that because we have been polite and peaceful, we cannot fight? You are wrong. He paused and looked around the room. Commander Zelthax, my government has given me a message for you. If one Velktari ship enters human space with weapons ready, we will consider it an act of war. And if you choose war with humanity, I promise you this. You will learn why Earth is called a Class 12 death world. You will learn why humans are the way we are. The room exploded with laughter. Aliens made their sounds of amusement. They thought Ryan was either crazy or stupid. The idea that humans could fight the Velktari Empire seemed impossible to them. Zelthax's body shimmered with satisfaction. Then war it is, human. My fleets will leave in 3 days. I suggest you use that time to pray to whatever gods your primitive species worships. The Velktari Empire has never lost a war. We will not lose this one. Ryan bowed slightly, showing respect even though he knew Zelthax did not deserve it. I will tell my superiors about your decision. They will be very interested. Ryan and Kate left the council room. Behind them, they could still hear aliens laughing and making jokes. Once they were safely in their small ship, Kate spoke. Sir, they think we are bluffing. They think we are weak. Ryan sat in the pilot's seat and started the ship's engines. Yes, they do. And that is exactly what we want them to think. But why? Because the Velktari have never fought anyone like us. They have never fought a species that grew up on a planet trying to kill them every single day. They have studied our ships and our weapons, and they think they understand us. But they do not understand what humans are really capable of when someone threatens our families and our homes. Kate opened a communication channel. Should I contact Admiral Hayes? Yes. Tell Greg that the Velktari took the bait. We have 3 days to get ready. Their ship flew away from the massive council station. Behind them, the Velktari were already preparing their war fleet. They were confident. They were certain of victory. They had no idea what was coming. Ryan opened a secure channel to Earth Defense Command. This is Ambassador Ryan Cooper. The Velktari Empire has declared war on humanity. They are sending their fleet to force us out of the Outer Rim. They will arrive in 3 days. A tired voice answered immediately. Confirmed, Ambassador. How did they respond to our warnings? They laughed at us, sir. There was a pause, then what might have been a quiet chuckle. Of course they did. Return to the observation post, Ambassador. Command wants you there to watch and document what happens next. This war is going to teach the whole galaxy a lesson they will never forget. Understood, sir. Cooper out. Kate looked at Ryan with curiosity in her eyes. Sir, what exactly is going to happen when their fleet arrives? Ryan's face showed no emotion. Kate, have you ever heard the old saying, speak softly and carry a big stick? Yes, sir. President Roosevelt said that centuries ago. Correct. For 20 years, humanity has been speaking very softly in galactic politics. We have been polite and friendly. We have let other species think we are weak because we have small numbers and limited territory. But we are not weak. No, we are not. The Veltari are about to discover what happens when you threaten a death world. Species that has been preparing for this exact scenario. Since the day we learned aliens existed, the ship continued toward human space. Somewhere behind them, the Veltari war fleet was gathering. 3,000 ships, massive weapons, overwhelming numbers. They were certain they would crush the humans easily, but humans had been fighting against impossible odds since before they invented the wheel. They had survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and each other. They had conquered a planet that tried to kill them from the moment they were born. The Veltari were about to learn a hard lesson. Humans did not know how to surrender. They only knew how to fight, adapt, and win. And this time, the whole galaxy was watching. Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the defense platform called Sentinel-7. He watched the computer screens that showed the Veltari fleet getting closer. Jake was 36 years old and had spent half his life in the Defense Force. He knew today would change everything. "Sir, we count 3,417 Veltari ships," said Lieutenant Bobby Chun from his station. "They are staying in formation and will reach our border in 6 hours. Are they changing direction at all?" Jake asked. His eyes never left the tactical display. "No, sir. They are coming exactly as we predicted. Standard Veltari intimidation formation. They want us to see how many ships they have when they arrive." Jake smiled a little. The Veltari always did the same thing. Their military had used the same tactics for 300 years. They won every battle by having more ships than the enemy. They had never needed to change their strategy because it always worked. "What is our defensive status?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Martinez looked up from her station. "All platforms are ready. The orbital defense grid is powered up and tracking the Veltari approach. Our fleet units are holding position at Rally Point Omega. We are as ready as we can be, sir." The bridge crew worked quietly and efficiently. Everyone knew this was humanity's first real test. How they performed today would determine how every alien species viewed humans for generations to come. "Sir." "Incoming transmission from Admiral Hayes on the Roosevelt," the communications officer reported. "Put it on screen." The view screen showed Admiral Greg Hayes in his command center. The admiral was 57 years old with gray hair. He looked like someone who had been preparing for war his entire career. "Commander Harrison, what is your status?" "All defensive positions are ready, sir." "The Veltari fleet is 6 hours away and showing no changes to their approach pattern." Hayes nodded. "Good. Remember, we hold position until they cross the border. We need them to be the aggressors. The entire Galactic Council is watching. We need everyone to see that the Veltari started this war, not us." "Understood, sir." "What about the civilian populations on the Outer Rim colonies?" "Evacuations are 97% complete. The few people remaining are military observers and volunteers who understand the risks. Those colonies will be the first targets once the fighting begins." Jake felt heavy in his chest. The 3 Outer Rim colonies represented 15 years of human expansion. Nearly 2 million civilians had lived there. They built homes and lives on worlds that were empty before humans arrived. The evacuation was necessary, but it meant abandoning everything those colonists had worked for. "Sir, may I speak freely?" "Go ahead, Commander." "The crew is confident, but there is tension. We are facing a force much larger than us. Some of the younger officers are worried." Hayes's expression softened. "That is natural. The Veltari built their reputation on overwhelming numbers. What those young officers need to understand is that humans have fought enemies who outnumbered us before. And we won. How do we win against 3,000 ships, sir?" "The same way humans have always won, Commander. We adapt, we use our environment. We turn our enemies' strengths into weaknesses." Hayes leaned forward. "The Veltari think they know how to fight us. They studied our ships and weapons. They concluded we are primitives with crude technology. But they are completely wrong. They are about to learn that. Exactly. Earth did not just produce one intelligent species. It produced the most adaptable and stubborn species in the galaxy. I have to brief the president now. Haste out. The screen went dark. Jake walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Veltari fleet was approaching. Certain of their victory, 6 hours later, space rippled and changed as 3,000 Veltari warships appeared at the edge of human territory. The fleet formed a massive wall of metal and energy that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Each ship was enormous. The smallest vessels were over 1 kilometer long. The largest dreadnoughts were over 5 kilometers long. The formation was designed to create terror. Any species seeing this display would immediately understand that resistance was impossible. The Veltari had used this exact formation to force 17 different civilizations to surrender without firing a single shot. Admiral Vorath commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Dominance. He was old for a Veltari, having served in the military for over 60 years. He had overseen the conquest of 4 species and the taking of over 200 worlds. What is the human response? Vorath asked his sensor officer. Minimal, Admiral. We detect approximately 300 human vessels holding position near their primary colony world. They appear to be defensive platforms, not combat ships. No signs of fleet mobilization? Vorath's crystal body clicked with satisfaction. As expected, the humans recognize they cannot win. Send the surrender terms. The communications officer sent a message on all frequencies. Human forces. This is Admiral Vorath of the Veltari Imperial Fleet. You are ordered to stand down and evacuate all Outer Rim territories immediately. If you comply, your species can keep limited control of your core systems. If you resist, we will take all human-controlled space. You have 1 hour to respond. On Sentinel-7, Jake listened to the ultimatum with his crew. The bridge was silent. Every officer waited for his response. Communications, open a channel to the Veltari flagship. Channel open, sir. Jake straightened his uniform and faced the view screen. Admiral Vorath, this is Commander Jake Harrison of the Human Defense Force. We received your surrender terms and must decline. The Outer Rim territories are sovereign human space, recognized by the Galactic Council Charter. Your fleet is violating interstellar law. Vorath's image appeared on the screen. His crystalline form shimmered with contempt. Commander Harrison, do not mistake our patience for weakness. You face 3,000 warships with a few hundred defensive platforms. This is not a negotiation. This is your final chance to avoid destruction. Admiral, my government has authorized me to deliver a message. If your fleet does not withdraw in the next 30 minutes, humanity will consider it an act of war and respond accordingly. The Veltari Admiral made a sound that translated as laughter. Respond with what? Your platforms? Your old fleet? You are like children with toys, threatening forces you cannot understand. Jake's expression stayed neutral. Sir, we have given you fair warning. What happens next is your responsibility. Then let me show you the price of defiance, Vorath replied. Target the nearest human colony. Bombardment pattern Theta. Show them our power. The communication ended. On the tactical display, Jake watched 50 Veltari ships break formation and speed toward the nearest Outer Rim colony, New Dakota. The small farming world had been evacuated days ago, but it still represented countless hours of human work and dreams. Sir, they are preparing to bombard New Dakota, Martinez reported. Weapons charging? Impact in 4 minutes. Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment everything changed. All platforms execute Alpha Protocol. Authorization Harrison 7 Delta. Across human space, hidden systems came to life. The defensive platforms that the Veltari dismissed as old technology suddenly revealed their true purpose. Each platform was actually a weapon station unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. Railgun batteries 1 through 40, target locked, Martinez announced. Firing solution confirmed. Fire What happened next would be studied by military schools for centuries. The platforms opened fire with weapons the Velktari never expected. Each platform launched tungsten rods no bigger than a human fist. But these rods were accelerated to incredible speeds using electromagnetic rails hundreds of meters long. The Velktari battle group heading toward New Dakota never saw the attack coming. The tungsten rods crossed the distance in seconds. Their speed was so great that each rod carried energy equal to a small nuclear weapon. The Velktari shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They did not even register the solid metal rods flying toward them. The first volley struck 12 Velktari ships at the same time. The results were devastating. Each tungsten rod punched through shields, armor, and hull as if the Velktari vessels were made of paper. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles simply exploded. Their air blasted out into space. "Direct hits on all targets," Martinez reported. Her voice was steady despite the destruction on her screen. 12 enemy vessels destroyed. The remaining battle group is breaking formation. On the Eternal Dominance, chaos erupted. Vorith stared at his tactical display in shock as 12 of his ships simply disappeared. "What happened?" he demanded. "How did they get through our shields?" "Unknown, Admiral," his sensor officer replied. "The weapons appear to be solid projectiles moving at extreme speeds. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid matter moving that fast. Return fire. Destroy those platforms." The Velktari fleet opened fire with their main weapons. Massive energy beams designed to overwhelm any defense struck the human platforms. For a moment, it seemed like the battle would turn, but the platforms held. Human engineers had designed them specifically to withstand the exact weapons the Velktari used. Layered armor, heat systems, and multiple shields absorbed the incoming fire. Platform 4 reports shield strength at 82%, Martinez updated. All other Ryan Cooper stood in the Grand Council chamber again. But everything felt different from his last visit. Before, the aliens had laughed at him. Now there was fear in the room. Uncertainty hung in the air like a thick fog. A holographic display floated in the center of the chamber. It showed footage from the Battle of the Outer Rim. Observation drones had recorded everything. The council representatives watched in silence as the video showed Velktari ships being destroyed one after another. High Commander Zelthax stood at the central podium. His crystal body no longer shimmered with confidence. His forearms hung limply. He struggled to explain what had happened. "The human weapons were unexpected," Zelthax admitted. His translator made his voice sound hesitant. "Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons. That is standard galactic military practice. No civilization in council space uses solid projectiles. They are considered primitive and inefficient." Council Speaker Thrain leaned forward in her chair. Her species, the Kelver, had been part of the council for over 2,000 years. She had seen many conflicts. Yet these primitive weapons destroyed over 400 of your warships in less than 2 hours, High Commander. Perhaps we need to reconsider what we mean by primitive. Ryan remained silent. He let the council struggle with what they had witnessed. Kate Morrison stood beside him. Her military posture was a stark contrast to the nervous aliens around them. Zelthax turned to face Ryan directly. "Human Ambassador, your species has broken the basic rules of galactic warfare. Kinetic weapons at those speeds create debris fields that endanger neutral shipping lanes. They are dangerous and barbaric." Ryan stepped forward. His voice was calm but clear. "High Commander, with respect, humanity did not start this conflict. Your fleet entered our territory planning to forcibly remove our civilians. We defended ourselves using the weapons we had available." "Weapons? You call weapons of mass destruction simple weapons?" Zelthax's tone carried outrage. "Your railguns could destroy planets if used in atmospheres. The kinetic energy alone would create extinction events." "Yes," Ryan agreed simply. "They could. Just as your fleet's weapons could have destroyed our colonies. The only difference is we chose to target your military ships instead of defenseless civilians." The chamber erupted in conversation. Delegates talked to each other frantically. Many species were reconsidering what they knew about human capabilities and human restraint. Speaker Thrain raised her hand for silence. Ambassador Cooper, the Council needs answers. Your species joined galactic civilization claiming to be peaceful explorers seeking knowledge and trade. Yet you have weapons that suggest you were preparing for war before you even joined the Council. Ryan nodded. Speaker Thrain, that is correct. Humanity has been preparing for potential conflict since we first learned we were not alone in the universe. Why? Thrain asked. What made you so suspicious of galactic civilization? History, Ryan replied. Human history is full of examples of what happens when a less advanced civilization meets a more powerful one. The results are rarely good for the weaker side. When we discovered faster-than-light travel and realized the galaxy was full of advanced species, we had to make a choice. Trust that everyone would be friendly or prepare to defend ourselves if necessary. He pointed to the holographic display that still showed debris from the battle. We hoped we would never need these weapons. We truly came to the Council seeking peace. But we learned long ago that peace is only possible when you are strong enough to defend yourself. History does not remember civilizations that were peaceful but weak. It remembers them as victims in someone else's story. A delegate from the Praxis species spoke up. They were bird-like creatures known for philosophy. But surely you could have compromised with the Velktari demands? Was war truly necessary? Kate Morrison stepped forward. Ryan nodded for her to speak. The young lieutenant addressed the Council with typical human directness. Delegate Praxis, my species has a saying. Give them an inch and they will take a mile. The Velktari did not ask to negotiate boundaries or discuss territorial issues through proper channels. They demanded we abandon our homes, our colonies, and everything we built. They gave us an ultimatum. Surrender or die. In human culture, that is not diplomacy. That is extortion. And humans do not respond well to extortion, Ryan added. We built those colonies with our own hands. We changed hostile worlds into places where people could live. We created communities. Every person who lived on those worlds chose to be there, knowing the risks. To demand we simply abandon them because the Velktari decided they wanted those planets? That was never going to happen. Zelthax's form shimmered with renewed anger. Your arrogance will destroy you. The Velktari Empire controls. Controlled, Ryan interrupted. Past tense. High Commander, before this conflict, the Velktari Empire controlled a third of known space through military intimidation. Every species in this chamber has seen what happens when someone challenges Velktari power. You crush them and take their territory. It has been your strategy for 3 centuries, and it worked perfectly. He paused, looking around the chamber. But that strategy has a fatal flaw. It only works when your targets believe you cannot be beaten. The moment someone stands up to you and wins, the whole system falls apart. How many species in this chamber are now reconsidering their relationship with the Velktari Empire? How many are wondering if they need to accept Velktari demands or if they could defend themselves like humanity did? The silence that followed was meaningful. Ryan could see the calculations happening in the minds of delegates across the chamber. The Velktari Empire's power had always been based on perception as much as reality. That perception had just been shattered. Speaker Thrain broke the silence. Ambassador Cooper, the Council must consider the bigger picture. If your defensive tactics spread, we risk a new arms race. Species will start building kinetic weapons. Shield technologies will develop to counter them. The cycle will continue. Respectfully, Speaker, that is not humanity's responsibility, Ryan replied. We did not create the system where military power equals political power. We just adapted to it. If the Council wants to prevent an arms race, perhaps it should focus on preventing the kind of aggressive expansion that started this conflict. A delegate from the Mithros Collective spoke up. They were known for practical politics. The human makes a valid point. The Velktari started this conflict through aggressive demands. The humans simply defended their legal territory. If we condemn humanity for their defensive actions, We set a precedent that species have no right to defend themselves against stronger powers. But their weapons, Zelthax began. Are their own business? The Mithros delegate interrupted. Unless the Council wants to dictate what defensive technologies each species may develop, that path leads to tyranny, not civilization. Ryan watched as opinion shifted in the chamber. The Council was divided. Some species still supported the Velktari. Others began questioning the entire system that had allowed Velktari dominance for so long. I have a proposal, Ryan announced. Humanity has no interest in conquest or expansion beyond our current territories. We are content with our outer rim colonies and core systems. However, we will not accept threats to our sovereignty or the safety of our people. We propose the following terms. The Velktari Empire formally recognizes all current human territorial claims. In return, humanity agrees to limit expansion for the next 50 years to allow proper diplomatic protocols to be established. Zelthax's crystal body practically vibrated with rage. You dare dictate terms to us? After humiliating our fleet? This is outrageous. High Commander, Speaker Thrain said quietly, you might want to consider the alternative. Ambassador Cooper's proposal is remarkably generous given the circumstances. If humanity chose to press their military advantage, they could demand far more. They could even demand Velktari territorial concessions as compensation for the conflict you initiated. The chamber fell silent as those words sank in. The Velktari had always been the ones making demands. The possibility that they might be on the receiving end was completely foreign to their culture. Ryan maintained his neutral expression, but inside he was pleased. This was exactly what humanity hoped to achieve. They did not want to conquer anyone. They just wanted respect and freedom to exist without constant threats. The Council will consider Ambassador Cooper's proposal, Thrain announced. In the meantime, I am declaring a mandatory ceasefire between the Velktari Empire and humanity. Any violation will result in immediate Council sanctions. High Commander Zelthax, you will withdraw all Velktari forces from human border regions. Ambassador Cooper, humanity will take no further offensive actions. Are these terms acceptable? Acceptable, Ryan replied immediately. Zelthax hesitated. His crystalline arms clicked in agitation. Finally, he managed a stiff nod. The Velktari Empire will comply with the ceasefire order. Good, this session is adjourned. Both parties will meet with Council mediators to negotiate formal peace. And High Commander? I suggest you use this time to reconsider your Empire's approach to diplomacy. The galaxy is changing. Species that refuse to adapt find themselves on the wrong side of history. As the chamber emptied, Ryan and Kate made their way to their shuttle. Once they were safely inside, and 3 weeks after the Battle of the Outer Rim, tensions remained high across the galaxy. The Velktari Empire had pulled back its forces from human borders as the Council ordered. But intelligence reports suggested they were far from accepting defeat. Lieutenant Commander Dan Cooper sat in his fighter cockpit aboard the carrier Defiant. He was 29 and no relation to Ambassador Ryan Cooper. Don was one of humanity's youngest squadron commanders. He had proven himself during smaller conflicts 5 years earlier. Phoenix Squadron, this is Defiant Control, the carrier's communications officer announced. We are picking up unusual activity in Sector 14. Multiple Velktari signatures, possibly a scouting force. You are cleared for reconnaissance patrol. Roger that, Control, Don replied. Phoenix Squadron, form up on me. Let us see what our friends are doing. His squadron of 12 fighters launched from the carrier's bay. Their small forms accelerated into darkness. Human fighters were tiny compared to Velktari craft, but they were fast, maneuverable, and packed weapons that hit hard. Lead, this is Phoenix 3, called pilot Nina Walsh. I am reading at least 50 Velktari ships in Sector 14. That is bigger than a scouting force. Dan checked his sensors and confirmed Nina's reading. 50 ships, all military types, holding position just outside the Council-ordered buffer zone. Not technically a ceasefire violation, but definitely suspicious. Defiant Control, we have visual on the Velktari force. Confirming 50-plus contacts, military configuration, holding at buffer zone boundary. Copy that, Phoenix Led. Maintain observation distance. Do not engage unless fired upon. Understood. Phoenix Squadron, spread out. Keep your distance, but maintain sensor contact. Let us see what they are planning. What Dan and his squadron did not know was that Admiral Voroth was running a complex operation. The Veltari fleet in Sector 14 was a decoy designed to draw human attention, while the real operation happened elsewhere, 2 sectors away. In the poorly monitored Helix Nebula region, a Veltari infiltration force was deploying stealth probes toward human territory. These probes had advanced sensors designed to map human defensive positions and find weaknesses in their grid. On the Defiant, Commander Julie Parker studied the tactical display with growing worry. She was 42, a veteran of multiple peacekeeping missions. Her instincts told her something was wrong. Communications, get me Admiral Hayes' priority channel. The Admiral's face appeared on her screen moments later. Commander Parker, what is the situation? Sir, we have a Veltari force of 50 ships sitting at the buffer zone in Sector 14. They are not doing anything, just holding position. It feels like a distraction, Hayes frowned. You think they are doing something elsewhere? Yes, sir. The Veltari do not deploy forces just to sit around. This feels like misdirection. Agreed. I will order additional patrols in nearby sectors. If they are planning something, we need to catch them. But the Veltari had planned for increased patrols. Their stealth probes used technology from a species they conquered decades earlier. The technology was specifically designed to avoid standard detection methods. The probes slipped past human patrol routes, gathering data on defensive positions, weapons placements, and communication networks. A civilian freighter captain accidentally discovered the infiltration. Captain Henry Blake was hauling mining equipment to the colony on New Montana when his ship's navigation sensors detected an anomaly. A small gravitational distortion that should not be there. This is civilian freighter Morning Star to any human defense vessel, Henry broadcast on military channels. I have something strange on my sensors near the Helix Nebula. Sending you the coordinates? The message reached the patrol ship Vigilant, commanded by Lieutenant Sam Foster. He was 31 and had spent 6 years on border patrol. It was boring but necessary work. Morning Star, this is the Vigilant. We are investigating your report. Hold your position. Sam's ship approached the coordinates Henry provided. Sensors were at maximum sensitivity. At first there was nothing. Then, almost by accident, his tactical officer detected a faint energy signature that did not match any natural phenomenon. Sir, I think I have something. It is small, using active camouflage to blend with background radiation. Can you get a clean scan? Working on it. There, got it. Sir, that is a Veltari probe, and judging by its trajectory, it has been mapping our defensive installations. Sam felt his stomach drop. If the Veltari had deployed probes throughout human space, they could be gathering intelligence for a second invasion. This was not just a ceasefire violation. This was preparation for war. Tactical, destroy that probe. Communications, get me Admiral Hayes immediately. Priority Alpha. The Vigilance weapons locked onto the probe and fired. It exploded in a brief flash of energy. But Sam knew where there was one probe, there were likely many more, within hours. Human forces had found and destroyed 17 Veltari stealth probes throughout border regions. The evidence was clear. The Veltari were preparing for renewed fighting. In the Grand Council chamber, Ambassador Ryan Cooper faced High Commander Zelthax again. But this time, Ryan was not diplomatic or calm. He was angry, and he showed it. High Commander, your Empire deployed intelligence probes in violation of the ceasefire agreement. This is an act of war. Zelthax's crystalline form shimmered with what might be embarrassment or defiance. The probes were deployed before the ceasefire was finalized. They were simply continuing their assigned missions. Do not insult my intelligence, Ryan said sharply. We have sensor logs showing those probes were deployed in the last 48 hours. The Veltari Empire violated the ceasefire. The Council needs to act. Speaker Thrain looked between the two ambassadors. Her ancient features showed concern. High Commander Zelfax, can you provide evidence that these probes were deployed before the ceasefire? The probe deployment orders were classified military operations. I cannot provide detailed records without compromising Velktari security protocols. How convenient, Ryan said coldly. Speaker Thrain, humanity has complied with every aspect of the ceasefire. We withdrew our forces. We suspended defensive preparations. We engaged in good faith negotiations. The Velktari responded by spying on our territory in preparation for another attack. That is speculation, Zelfax protested. Is it? Then why were your probes specifically mapping our defensive installations? Why were they analyzing our weapons platforms and communication networks? Those are not the actions of a species interested in peace. Those are preparations for war. The council chamber erupted in debate. Several species that had stayed neutral now spoke up, questioning Velktari intentions. Others, still intimidated by Velktari power, argued for caution and more investigation. Kate Morrison stood beside Ryan, monitoring reactions from various delegates. She leaned close to whisper, "Sir, we are losing the neutral delegates. They are afraid of angering the Velktari." Ryan nodded slightly. He expected this. The Velktari had spent centuries cultivating fear among galactic species. That fear would not disappear after one military defeat. Speaker Thrain, Ryan announced, humanity formally requests that the Council impose economic sanctions on the Velktari Empire until they demonstrate compliance with the ceasefire agreement. Additionally, we request expanded monitoring of Velktari military movements to prevent further violations. Zelfax's crystalline form practically vibrated with rage. You would turn the Council against us? After we have been the guarantors of galactic peace for centuries? Guarantors of peace? Ryan's voice rose. High Commander, you have been the enforcer of a system where the strong dominate the weak. That is not peace. That is oppression with better marketing. The bluntness stunned many delegates. In galactic politics, such direct accusations were rare. Most species preferred diplomatic language and careful words. The human speaks truth, announced a delegate from the Tarvan species. They had been forced to give territory to the Velktari decades earlier. The Velktari Empire has used military threats to expand their territory for generations. They claim to bring peace, but it is the peace of submission, not cooperation. Other species began speaking up, sharing their experiences with Velktari intimidation and territorial demands. What started as a debate about probe deployment became something larger. A referendum on the Velktari Empire's entire approach to governing. Zelfax watched his empire's reputation crumble. Everything the Velktari built was based on perception of invincible strength. That perception was collapsing, undermined by a species that dared to fight back and won. Enough! Zelfax's translator barely conveyed his fury. The Velktari Empire has heard the Council's complaints. We will withdraw our forces from all border regions, not just those near human space. We will submit to Council monitoring of military deployments. And we will negotiate a formal peace treaty with humanity under Council supervision. The chamber fell silent. Zelfax's concessions were unprecedented. No one expected the High Commander to give in so completely. Speaker Thrain recovered first. The Council accepts the Velktari Empire's offer. Ambassador Cooper, is this acceptable to humanity? Ryan studied Zelfax carefully. The High Commander's crystal body had lost its shimmer, appearing almost dull in the chamber's light. This was not just diplomatic concession. This was surrender, at least politically. Years passed after the formation of the Galactic Defense Alliance. What started as an ambitious experiment became the new foundation of galactic civilization. More than 100 species joined the alliance. The joint defensive stations became models for cooperation. Pirates and raiders found themselves facing coordinated responses that made their activities far more dangerous than before. The Velktari Empire, surprisingly, became one of the alliance's strongest supporters. High Commander Zelfax, now serving as the Velktari representative to the Alliance Council, had successfully transformed his empire. They went from feared conquerors to respected partners. It was difficult. Many traditional Velktari military leaders never fully accepted the new approach. But Zelthax understood what Ambassador Ryan Cooper tried to explain in that first confrontation. The galaxy had changed. Species that refused to change with it would be left behind. In the Alliance headquarters, built on a neutral space station in the galactic core, representatives from dozens of species worked together. They addressed trade, disputes, resource allocation, defensive strategies, and exploration missions. Everything was coordinated through the Alliance framework. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts and disagreements. Some species left the Alliance, frustrated by the slow consensus-building process. Others joined with bad intentions, hoping to exploit the system. The Alliance had to constantly adapt, creating new rules to address emerging challenges, but it endured. And it grew stronger. Admiral Greg Hayes, now retired but still occasionally consulted on military matters, watched the Alliance develop with satisfaction. He had spent his career preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. The defensive platforms, the advanced weapons, the contingency plans, they had all been necessary. But they were used to build peace, not wage endless war. Admiral? Young officer approached him at the military academy where he now taught. I am writing a thesis on the Battle of the Outer Rim. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did humanity invest so heavily in military capabilities if we genuinely sought peaceful integration? Was that not contradictory? Hayes smiled. It was a question he got often from students who grew up in the Alliance era. They could not remember when humanity was considered weak and insignificant. Son, there is an old saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. Humanity did not build those weapons because we wanted to fight. We built them because we knew that in a galaxy where strength determined status, being weak meant being vulnerable. We prepared for war so thoroughly that potential enemies decided peace was better. But does that not just continue the cycle of militarization? It can if you let it. That is why we created the Alliance. We took our defensive capabilities and offered to share them with others, not to conquer but to protect. We showed that military strength could enable cooperation rather than enforce domination. The young officer nodded, processing the information. Do you think humanity would have survived if we had not prepared so thoroughly? Hayes was quiet for a moment. Honestly? No, the Velktari would have forced us off the Outer Rim colonies. Other species would have seen our weakness and taken advantage. We would have been pushed back to our core systems, isolated and vulnerable. Eventually, someone would have decided Earth itself was too valuable to leave in human hands. So the weapons saved us, the weapons gave us options. What saved us was willingness to use them in defense of our principles. Any species can build weapons. Not every species has the courage to use them when necessary, or the wisdom to put them down when possible. On Unity 1, Captain Kate Morrison commanded the defense wing with efficiency. But now her duties included coordinating with Velktari, Mithros, and Corinthian forces. The joint exercises had become routine, though they still occasionally revealed interesting cultural differences. Captain? Lieutenant Commander Nino Walsh, now Morrison's executive officer, approached. We have an incoming vessel requesting emergency docking. They claim refugee status. What species? Unknown. Their ship design does not match any Alliance database. They say they are fleeing from something called the Krell Dominion, a power from beyond the galactic rim. Morrison felt a chill. The Alliance brought stability to known space, but the galaxy was vast. There were always new threats emerging from unexplored regions. Grant them emergency docking, full quarantine protocols, and contact Alliance headquarters. If there is a new major power out there, we need to know about it. Within days, the Alliance Council was receiving briefings on the Krell Dominion. The refugees, a species called the Fenari, described an empire that made the old Velktari look gentle. The Krell conquered through overwhelming force. They enslaved entire species and stripped planets of resources before moving to the next target. They are coming, the Fenari representative explained through translators. We are just the first wave of refugees. Behind us are millions more fleeing the Krell advance. and behind them are the Krell fleets. Ambassador Shunwei, who succeeded. Ryan Cooper, as humanity's representative, listened carefully. At 47, she had learned diplomacy from Cooper himself. She shared his practical approach to galactic politics. "How long until the Krell reach Alliance space?" she asked. "Based on their previous expansion rate, 3 to 5 years. They do not negotiate. They do not accept surrender. They simply conquer and move on." The council chamber fell silent. This was the moment the Alliance was created for. A genuine external threat requiring coordinated response. High Commander Zelthax spoke first. The Alliance must respond. "If we allow the Krell to advance unopposed, we will face them one by one. That is a battle we cannot win." Ambassador Chun nodded. "Agreed, but we need intelligence. We need to understand their capabilities, tactics, and weaknesses." One proposed. "We send a joint reconnaissance mission to border regions where the Krell currently operate." "A dangerous mission," noted the Mithros representative. "Who would volunteer?" "I will go." Captain Jake Harrison, promoted after his service on Sentinel-7, stepped forward. "My crew has experience with first contact situations. We can gather the intelligence the Alliance needs." Over the next months, the Alliance mobilized in ways impossible under the old system. Species that had been enemies shared technology and tactics. Joint defensive positions were reinforced. Evacuation plans were drawn for border regions, and humanity, the species that started this transformation through stubborn refusal to submit, found themselves at the center of Alliance defensive preparations. Human military doctrine, born from centuries of warfare on a hostile death world, became the foundation for Alliance strategy. Admiral Vorath, now working as senior military advisor to the Alliance, met with Greg Hayes to discuss defensive planning. Admiral Hayes, the Krell use overwhelming force tactics similar to what the Velktari once employed. But they are far more aggressive and less interested in preserving infrastructure. They simply destroy everything. Hayes studied intelligence reports. "Then we need to make them pay for every advance. No pitched battles where they can use their numbers. Hit-and-run attacks, guerrilla warfare. Turn every system into a quagmire that bleeds their forces." "You are describing human military doctrine from your planet's history." "Because it works. The Krell are used to species that fight conventionally, that mass forces for decisive battles. We will do the opposite. We will make them chase ghosts, waste resources on empty systems, and slowly wear them down until they decide conquering Alliance space is not worth the cost." Vorath's crystalline form shimmered with approval. 5 years ago, I would have called such tactics cowardly and dishonorable. Now I understand they are simply effective. The humans have taught us much about practical warfare, and the Velktari have taught us about coordination and logistics. That is what makes the Alliance work. We each bring our strengths and learn from each other. When Captain Harrison's reconnaissance mission returned, the news was grim but not hopeless. The Krell were powerful. They possessed weapons that could devastate planets and fleets numbering in the tens of thousands. But they were also predictable. They followed rigid tactical doctrines that could be exploited by more flexible opponents. "They are like the Velktari were," Harrison reported to the Council, "dependent on overwhelming force and intimidation. They have never faced an enemy that adapted and innovated in response." "And then we will teach them the same lesson we taught the Velktari," Ambassador Chun said. "That strength alone is not enough? That cooperation and adaptation can overcome even the most overwhelming odds." The Alliance spent the next 3 years preparing for Krell arrival. New defensive stations were built in border regions. Joint fleets trained together, learning to coordinate diverse fighting styles of dozens of species. Civilian populations in potential conflict zones were evacuated to secure areas deeper in Alliance space. And when the Krell finally arrived, they found not a fractured collection of weak species ripe for conquest. They found a unified Alliance ready to defend every inch of their territory. The Krell War would last 7 years and become the defining event of an entire generation. But it would also prove the Alliance concept worked. Species working together could defend themselves against threats that would overwhelm any individual civilization. And at the center of that defense on battlefields across the 6 months after the Battle of the Outer Rim, Ambassador Ryan Cooper stood at the observation deck of humanity's newest diplomatic station. He watched construction crews finish what would become the permanent embassy complex for Earth and its colonies. The station, named Unity 1, floated at the neutral boundary between human space and the greater galactic community. It was a statement. Humanity was here to stay. They would engage with other species as equals, not as lesser beings or conquerors. Impressive, is it not? Kate Morrison joined him at the window. She had been promoted to full commander and now served as military liaison for the new embassy. A year ago, most species thought we were primitives playing at civilization. Now we are building the largest independent diplomatic facility in this sector. Ryan smiled. It is amazing what a little self-defense can accomplish. How are the Velktari negotiations going? Better than expected. Their new negotiating team is remarkably reasonable compared to the old guard. High Commander Zelthax really did shake things up in their government. It was true. In the months after their defeat, the Velktari Empire underwent significant internal reforms. Zelthax convinced the Velktari High Council that their old approach no longer worked. Species were becoming stronger and more independent. They were less willing to accept Velktari dominance without question. The reforms were painful for traditional Velktari military leaders, but they were necessary. The Empire's reputation had been built on invincibility. That reputation was shattered. Now they had to rebuild through cooperation and mutual benefit rather than intimidation. Ambassador Cooper, a young diplomatic aide, approached. The council is ready for your presentation. Ryan nodded and straightened his uniform. Today was important. He would address the full Galactic Council with a proposal that could reshape interstellar relations. The Grand Council chamber was full when Ryan arrived. Every species with a seat was present, along with observers from dozens of other civilizations. The past 6 months showed that humanity was a real power. Everyone wanted to hear what Earth's ambassador had to say. Speaker Thrain called the session to order. Ambassador Cooper, you requested this special session to present a proposal. You may begin. Ryan stepped to the central podium. He looked around at the assembled representatives. Thank you, Speaker. Honored delegates, 6 months ago, humanity and the Velktari Empire stood on the edge of full-scale war. That conflict was avoided, but it revealed something important. The current system of galactic governance is fundamentally unstable. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ryan continued. For centuries, peace in the galaxy has been maintained through hierarchy. Strong species dominate weaker ones, either through direct conquest or implied threat. The Velktari Empire became the most powerful by perfecting this system. They built an empire on the understanding that resistance was useless. High Commander Zelthax, who now attended council sessions personally, listened without interruption. His crystalline form no longer shimmered with arrogance. But humanity's conflict with the Velktari proved this system has a fatal flaw. It only works when everyone accepts it. The moment one species refuses to submit, the entire structure becomes unstable. Right now, dozens of species are reconsidering their relationships with larger powers. Some are quietly developing military capabilities. Others are forming defensive alliances. The galaxy is becoming more militarized, not less. What is your point, Ambassador? Asked a delegate from the Corinthian species. Are you suggesting we disarm? No, I am suggesting we need a new framework for galactic governance. One based on mutual defense and shared interests rather than domination and submission. Ryan activated a holographic display showing a proposed structure. I call it the Galactic Defense Alliance. Any species can join, regardless of size or military strength. Members agree to defend each other against external threats and submit territorial disputes to binding arbitration. In exchange, they receive access to shared defensive technologies, joint training, and backing from all alliance members if attacked. The chamber erupted in discussion. The idea was radical. Most species were used to the Velktari model, where one dominant power guaranteed order. Ryan's proposal suggested something different. Distributed power among many species working together. "This is idealistic nonsense," shouted a delegate from a smaller Velktari client state. "How can you enforce rules without a dominant power to back them?" "The same way humans enforced rules among themselves for thousands of years," Ryan replied. "Through mutual agreement backed by collective action. If one member violates the Alliance Charter, the others work together to address it. No single species dominates, but no single species is vulnerable either." Zelthax stood, drawing every eye. "Ambassador Cooper, the Velktari Empire spent centuries building the current system. Why would we support dismantling it?" "Because the current system is already dismantling itself," Ryan replied. "High Commander, you have seen the reports? Dozens of species are developing military capabilities specifically to counter Velktari tactics. Others are forming secret alliances. Some are considering strikes against Velktari installations before your empire recovers its strength." The chamber went silent. Ryan had just revealed intelligence most species thought was secret. "The galaxy has changed," Ryan continued. "Humanity's victory proved the old rules do not apply. You can either fight to maintain a crumbling system, or help build a new one that benefits everyone, including the Velktari." "How would the Velktari benefit from surrendering our dominant position?" Zelthax asked. "By gaining genuine allies instead of fearful subjects. By focusing your considerable resources on mutual defense instead of constant pacification campaigns. By becoming leaders through respect rather than fear." Ryan paused. "High Commander, humanity is not naive. There will always be conflicts and tensions. But we can manage those through cooperation rather than conquest." Zelthax was quiet for a long moment. His crystalline form seemed to shimmer with internal debate. Finally he spoke. "The Velktari Empire will participate in negotiations to establish this Galactic Defense Alliance. We make no promises, but we are willing to discuss the possibility." The chamber erupted again. Zelthax's willingness to even consider Ryan's proposal was historic. The Velktari rarely participated in multilateral negotiations as anything but the dominant party. "Speaker," Thrain called for order. "The Council will form a working group to develop specifics of Ambassador Cooper's proposal. All interested species may participate. We will reconvene in 30 cycles to review recommendations." As the session concluded, Ryan found himself surrounded by delegates eager to discuss the proposal. Some were enthusiastic, others were skeptical. But everyone recognized the significance of what just happened. Later, back on Unity 1, Ryan and Kate reviewed the day's events. "Do you really think this will work?" Kate asked. "Getting dozens of species to cooperate on defense?" "It has worked on Earth," Ryan replied. "Look at Neto, or the various defense pacts that prevented World War III. Species can cooperate when they have shared interests. Everyone has an interest in preventing another major conflict. But Earth was one planet. This is an entire galaxy." "True, but the principle is the same. Security through cooperation? Besides, what is the alternative? Let every species build military forces until someone starts a war that engulfs the galaxy? That is not a future anyone wants." 3 months later, the working group presented its recommendations. The proposed Galactic Defense Alliance would include several key provisions. First, any species could join regardless of size or military strength. Membership required only commitment to mutual defense and peaceful dispute resolution. Second, the alliance would establish joint defensive positions at strategic locations. Technologies and tactics from multiple species would combine to create defenses stronger than any single civilization could build. Third, territorial disputes between members would go to binding arbitration. Non-members who attacked alliance members would face collective response. Fourth, defensive technologies would be shared among members, but each species kept control of its most sensitive capabilities. The goal was cooperation, not uniformity. Fifth, the alliance would maintain a rapid response force capable of defending member territories while regular forces mobilized. This force would include volunteers from all member species. The proposal was ambitious, perhaps unrealistic. but it offered something the current system did not. Hope for a better future. When the council reconvened to vote, Ryan watched with nervous anticipation. This was humanity's vision for galactic civilization. A system where strength came from unity rather than dominance. Speaker Thrain called for the vote. One by one, species announced their positions. Some voted yes immediately. Others abstained, wanting to see how the system developed. A few voted no, comfortable with the status quo or unwilling to surrender any independence, but when final tallies came in, the proposal passed with a two-thirds majority. The Galactic Defense Alliance would become reality. Most significantly, High Commander Zelfax announced the Velktari Empire would join as a founding member. The empire that built its power on domination would now participate in an alliance of equals. Celebrations on Unity 1 lasted well into the night. Humanity accomplished something remarkable. They used their